Ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Janice Pollock. I'm the president of Middletown Federation of Teachers. This is our Board of Education election forum. This is an opportunity for the public to get to know our candidates and to get to know the people that are running for our Board of Education. It is a very important job. It's sometimes overlooked as far as when you're voting, but this time around, we only get to vote for Board of Education and for planning and zoning. So we thank you for coming to watching our video and getting to know the candidates and understanding who is running for our Board of Education this year. This evening, we have our candidates. We have David Booth, we have Deborah Gus, Emily Jackson, Ian McMahon, Susan Owens, Bill Perkins, John Polino, and Charles Wiltsey. We'll start off shortly with the candidates giving a 2-minute introduction. We will then ask questions. We'll get through as many as we can. And then around 7:35, 7:40, we will do a 2-minute, we'll allow every candidate to do a 2-minute final statement. And then we will close out for the evening. So I welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. And if we could have David start with an introduction.
Good evening, staff, faculty, and the Middletown community. My name is David Booth, and as you are aware, I am running for Board of Ed. A little about me is I am an outsider from Connecticut. I did not grow up here, so I'm originally from Michigan. I've traveled around not just the United States, but the world due to my military experience. And I have experienced a lot in my lifetime. During this, it's allowed me to experience third world countries and how they handle their education versus how we handle our education here. I also have a sociology and criminal justice degree, along with a master's in public administration and a certificate in graduate management. I have 4 children here in the Middletown Public Schools. So I do have a lot to offer to our district and to our community. And I would like to be a representative for our community on the board. And my wife and I and our children, we do enjoy being here in Middletown. So thank you.
Thank you. And Deborah, please go next.
Hey, my name is Deborah Gus. I'm a corporate lawyer with Otis Elevator Company, having joined them after working in various legal positions with United Technologies Corporation, including Pratt & Whitney, for close to 20 years. I specialize in securities and finance law and have supported the corporate secretary's office at both Otis and UTC, which has provided me with direct involvement with working with board of directors and understanding what a role of a board member is. Why am I running for the Middletown Board of Ed? I have 2 daughters, Rachel and Samantha Angle, who both went through Middletown schools. I have to say they had received a first-rate education, and I think Middletown schools are very special. I care very much about them. And I'm at a point in my life where I feel like it's important to give back to the Middletown community, especially to the school system, which provided my daughters with such a great experience. In particular, I truly value the diversity of our town and our school system. I believe that our educational system offers them the best hope of making progress on many of the challenges that we face as a country. And frankly, I think that educating our youth is the most important thing that we can do as people. In particular, I think the role of school is to provide people with the skills they need to survive in an ever-changing and complex world. So I'm going to bringing to this certain level of skills in in being part of the board, but also I have a great passion for education and making sure education is available to everybody at the same level, and that the students are getting the skills, whether they're reading, writing, or technical skills. That's what we should be providing them and focusing on.
Thank you. Emily, please go next.
Good evening. I'm Emily Jackson, and I have lived here in Middletown for 11 years. I love Middletown. I am married and have 4 children. My wife is a teacher here in Middletown. 2 of my grown-up daughters went through Middletown High School and through the middle school, and we were very happy with that experience. I have 2 young children who are in elementary school at Farm Hill. Why am I running for Board of Education? I have for many years worked in the nonprofit sector. For over 20 years, I was an executive director, wasn't executive director that entire time, but for over 20 years, I worked in the nonprofit sector, collaborating closely with schools. The last few years, I now work in a K-8 school in New Haven as a director of operations and human resources. And so I do have a special, look into what's happening in schools through that position. But of course, I'm definitely extremely invested as far as a parent, a person in this community, and then also professionally. So I have long done this work in another community, not in my own, and I am compelled to serve in my own community and assist in any way that I possibly can. I really believe in collaboration, meaning that our town and our Board of Education, our district all comes together and works together. And with that, transparent communication. Those things are extremely important to me. So that's why I'm here and running for Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian, could you please go next?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Hi, so I'm Ian. I grew up in Killingworth, moved to Middletown about 5 or 6 years ago. Since then, I went through school, CCSU, and I became a cloud engineer at Travelers. And there's kind of like 2 main reasons why I decided I wanted to run. One, I grew up with a learning disability, and I understand how challenging it can be going through the system with a lack of support, and how beneficial it can be if there is adequate support. And 2, being a cloud engineer, I'm kind of on like the forefront of technology today, and it's ever changing. And I want to be able to use my experience to prepare students for what I believe will be the dominant workforce in the next few years.
Thank you. Susan, please go next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Owens. I was born and raised in Middletown, attended the public school system here, graduated from Middlesex Community College. I have a degree in multimedia. I am a retired state employee. I am currently raising 3 of my great nephews, and I have a grown son. I have been on several different boards or organizations. I used to be on NEAT. I used to own my own store. Right now, I am presently the vice president of the American Legion Auxiliary 206, the Greater Hartford Progressive Democratic Women's Club. I forgot one more, Connecticut Federation of Democratic Women. I am the vice president of that. I have worked in the court system since retiring as a guardian ad litem. I have also volunteered at Middletown High School since 2005. However, in 2009, 2 other women and myself, we started a mentoring program for girls called Girls Inspired for Total Success. And we have had over 300 girls from Middletown High School go through our program, which just started up last week. The reason why I am running is that Two of my nephews came home and they had to sign some papers and they didn't know how to sign. They didn't know anything about cursive writing. So that gave me a little interest in the school system on what is going on there, that they're taking that, they took that away since 2010. I like to see some more diversity of teachers in our school system. I would like to work on the achievement gap and by using the opportunity gap. I think that will really work. I'm really for that there. And I'm also interested in the mental health and safety of our teachers and our students.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Bill Perkins, could you go next, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Bill Perkins. I'm raised in Middletown. I wasn't born in Middletown, but I was raised here in Middletown all my life. I myself went through the school system. I have 6 children, all of which have gone through at one point or are in the school system right now. Actually, my youngest 2, one is at Beeman and one is at McDonough. They actually just walked up the driveway. I'm the founder and president of Knights of Valhalla Car Club. We are a community-based car club. We do tons of stuff here in town. We're part of the Middletown Community Thanksgiving Project, where we do our own toy drive every year, where we collect toys and hand them out at McDonough every Christmas Eve. We've done that for the last 7 years. I'm running for Board of Ed because I think one of the biggest things that we need as parents right now, and a parent with children in the school system, is transparency. That's one of the biggest things that I think we need right now, along with student safety and teacher safety. Mental health is an issue. We could probably add some counselors, and there's some other changes that I'd like to see. Like Ian, I didn't know this until today. I actually read his bio. I grew up with a learning disability myself. I did go to an alternative school, but I graduated from Middletown High. So I understand that struggle of getting the proper help. I know it took my mother and an educational advocate a very long time to get me what I needed, but I got it. So I just look forward to trying to help people get the things that they need and make our children safe.
Thank you very much. Charles Wiltsey, please go next. I'm sorry, no, I apologize. John Polino.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Like Susan and Bill, I'm also a lifelong Middletown resident. I am currently a public school teacher. This is my 22nd year. I'm telling you, I can't believe it. I mean, 22 years in the public system, and I'm exhausted. This year has been exhausting. Last year was, but this year has been even more exhausted. Like maybe it's after COVID, or I don't know, maybe it's the masks. But anyways, prior to working at the public school, I worked at a special ed school, special education school in Devereaux. It was called Devereaux Glenholm in Washington, Connecticut. And the year before that, I was a paraprofessional at Mansfield Middle School. So when I was approached 4 years ago to run for the Board of Ed, I don't want to say I thought I knew everything, but I thought that, you know, since I'm an educator and I've been around, my father taught high school for 37 and a half years at Maloney High School. I thought it would be a little easier. And I think the problem is that it's good to have people from different walks of life, of course, but I kind of know what happens. I mean, I know what happens at the school every day. And I think Bill mentioned it. And once again, Susan said about mental health. I see my friends and my colleagues and kids too, you know, falling apart. These people are falling apart. Today, I dealt with an English teacher who was having a panic attack. And these are things that need to be addressed. And I've talked a lot about it. I was a union rep my entire career. This is the first year I'm not a union rep because I had to take something off my plate. And it was getting crazy. And teachers will tell you that. You want to do everything, but you can't. You know, I also have 2 kids in the system. I have nice son, 30 seconds. A really cool son at Beeman Middle School, Jack, and Emily, my daughter, goes to Middletown High School. But if I return to the Board of Education, my main goal is to get rid of cell phones. And I'll talk more about that later. It's just eating everybody up with their time and energy and so forth. And I'll stop there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Charles, it is now your turn.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Charles Wiltsey. I live in Middletown. I've been in the area for most of my life. I own a business here as a continuing education company. I don't know. I went to both public and private schools. I did graduate from Xavier High School. I have 5 kids, all of whom are adults now, and they've been to private, parochial, and public schools here in Middletown. They've been to all of them. The last one graduated from Middletown High School. Pretty happy with that. My background, I graduated from Brigham Young University, and my degree is in English. Let's see. I was also director of education for post-secondary trade schools and teacher there. I also substitute teach for fun. I don't know why I think that's fun, but it really is fun, and it keeps me up to date on what the teachers, the actual teachers day to day are doing. And I was kind of inspired to do this because I'm very, very pro career type schools, trade school stuff, getting people ready to work in the world when they get out of high school. I know, and when I bring that up, a lot of people say, well, there's vinyl, but vinyl's got a backlog, it's regional. So I'm for that. As far as the Board of Education, I'd like to get back to a fundamental civil conversation between people. I do believe that teachers need to be at the table all the time. I'm always been very pro union that way. And I think when you put them at the table, you put them at the board of directors, so to speak, then because the teachers are dealing with parents and administration. They don't come and they don't go. Administrations are transient. Teachers continue to stick around. That's it for now.
Thank you very much. All right, so we will now start with our very first question, and Deborah, you will be the first one. And if you need me to repeat the question, I will always repeat the question. That's not a problem. So I'm thinking that we should start off with our working from questions that fall into the category of candidate background and plans to kind of, I think it's a nice segue into after your introductions. And our first question is, do you feel it is important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels or subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like? If so, why?
Well, I've had experience going into classroom, helping in classrooms with my kids. I was a very active parent, so I think that's hugely helpful. So to the extent as a board member, I'm going to be designated to go to a particular school, I'd be very open to doing that. At the end of the day, teachers are on the front of the line of any kind of educational experience, and so seeing how anything is, how the classroom's actually working, what the issues that they're dealing with, that's very important. I mean, as some of our senior management in my company would say is that the only way they learn is when they go into the factory. And not only that, when they go into the factory, they bring out a field person and they have that field person talk to the factory person. That's when you're going to come up with the solutions that are actually going to work. So, management shouldn't be far, and actually our board members go in and visit factories. It's important to see what things are like on the ground.
Thank you. Emily, do you feel it is important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels or subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like? If so, why?
Absolutely. I think it is extremely important to have that firsthand experience and knowledge as to what's happening in the classroom and in different classrooms. So it shouldn't be the same teacher. It shouldn't be the same subject. It should be, all over the board. I think that it definitely keeps you in line and in a clear perspective of what's happening. I would love to say do it in different schools, like really get a broad perspective of what's occurring. I work in a school. I do this regularly. I do it from a perspective of what's missing, what do teachers need, what do our assistants need. I want to know what people are experiencing, because sometimes from where I sit, like I know fundamentally what you might need, what things you need to make you successful. But when you get into the classroom, it's a different ball game. A lot of us lose sight of what it's like to have 20 some children in a room with you and having to manage that and get through curriculums and do everything that needs to be done. So I think it's very important. And I love the idea of shadowing for an entire day, not just an observation of one part of the day, but the entire day. I think that's very important. I've gone into my son's classroom, pre-COVID days, and had the opportunity to just observe and see, how he was doing. And I really value those experiences. And it definitely does open up a perspective as to how hard teachers are working and definitely. So I 100% think that that's extremely important. I'm not qualified to co-teach though, just saying.
Thank you. Ian, the question is, do you feel it is important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels, subject areas, to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like? If so, why?
Yeah, realistically, we can make all these curriculum changes and everything and push out these, ideas that will help the students and teachers. But unless we actually see what's happening or even get a glimpse of what's happening, we can't really produce anything really productive. So being in the classroom and seeing how the students act, seeing how, they misbehave if they do, seeing how individuals learn, it would be really helpful to push a curriculum that could kind of help all of them, and teachers included. So yeah, I would agree that would be helpful.
Thank you. Susan, do you feel it's important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels or subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like?
Yes, I agree with what everybody says. Is that I think that it should be more than a couple times, a year, and it should be different classes. You need another set of eyes to see what's going on, and also it can help the teacher what you see and maybe give her some, insight or what you think might work. But it also helps in going back to saying this teacher needs this help here, this teacher needs that, and we need to get that help in the classroom. So being there, you'll see it, what they're talking about. If you're not there, you don't know. You're just assuming this is happening. So yes, I agree, definitely.
Thank you. Bill, do you feel it is important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels or subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a hands-on kind of guy anyway, so I would probably naturally ask to do that just so I could have an idea of what's going on. The teachers are, at the forefront, and if we're not there at least once, to witness that, then we're going to miss out on something. And like Ian said, we need to see how the kids are learning, when they misbehave, and how the teachers are teaching. And you should definitely hit a couple more than just one class, and you should definitely spend a day, if not more, if you can, and just get a good feel for what's going on in that school and find what's going to be the best way to support the teachers and the students.
Thank you. And John, do you feel it's important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels, subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is really like?
Not today.
Yes, I do. In fact, I was every other day I push in with a younger teacher. It's her class and I pushed in with her. And It's really good because I pick up things from the class that she doesn't pick up because I'm walking around and helping out. Once again, especially with the mental health issues, somebody has an issue with another kid, or there may be a fight or something. I don't go there to do that. That's not my job. I'm supposed to help her out. But it seems to work very well. And there was one day where her kids didn't receive laptops, and I was able to walk up to the office. And I probably wasn't too popular by doing this. Said, we have 11 kids without laptops. So I was able to do that. But on the other days, Mr. Tyson, and he pushes in with me. So it's kind of cool. He sees how I teach. I see how he teaches. I see how Miss Corrigan teaches, and so forth. And I like how they did it at my school because they put younger people with older people. It's really good with new technology because they can teach us different things, or I can teach them different things. And so far, I'm a very, very big fan of it. I wish I should add that I did a NEASC visit in North Branford recently, where I visited the school and I had to follow a kid around all day. And I know the schedule because I'm a teacher, but just following a student around all day is so exhausting. I had to go everywhere the kid went. And the kid's kind of like, "Are you creepy?" "No, I'm not creepy. I have to do this. They're making me do this." I went to lunch. I had to go everywhere with a kid. But I think members of the Board of Ed should do that. And I think administrators should do that, because administrators should shadow too, not for T-val evaluation, to see what really goes on and what we experience. And I'm not making fun of admin at all. I'm just saying I think it would be a great idea to see what the teachers are doing on a day-to-day basis to evaluate, different things. That's it.
Thank you. Charles, do you feel it's important to visit or co-teach and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels or subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like?
Well, yes, but there isn't anything anybody said that you can disagree with. The only thing in my case is I'm not sure that I would want to co-teach. I don't know, you could be introduced by the teacher, this guy is here, but I don't know that I would want to do that part of it. But I think seeing what, and I think what Jonathan said about administration taking a look is a good idea. I know when I was an administrator, it was a routine thing for me to go into classrooms, and it was really informative. I remember we had a teacher that was particularly difficult, and everyone complained about this teacher constantly. I went into the class, I just dropped in, and he was incredible. He was a really, really good teacher. And so sometimes I think it's a very good idea. And I think it's a very good idea for Board of Ed to do as well. I don't have much more to say about that. I mean, it's a good idea.
Thank you. And David, you're the last one to answer this question. Do you feel it's important to visit, co-teach, and shadow a teacher for a day or a few times a year at various levels, subject areas to gain a broader perspective of what the classroom is truly like?
Absolutely. I think this would be one of the first things I would want to actually take on if I'm elected on. And honestly, I don't know all the teachers here in the district, but I do know a good amount with my children's schools. And I'm going to have to put a shout out to Miss James here, because I've heard tremendous stories about her and how she teaches her students. And honestly, as a parent, I'm a little jealous that my kids never got to be in her class, because I've heard a lot of great things. So I would love to be able to kind of shadow Miss James and see how she runs her class. And as for co-teaching, I have no problem co-teaching. My only request for that is, if that is if the teacher wants us to co-teach, to at least give us the topic the night before, so we can at least brush up on our skills. So we're not just ambushed on the spot. But I am not opposed to co-teaching. I've done that previously in my time, and it's great.
Thank you. All right, so we're moving on to our second question. Deborah, you're going to be the first one who gets to answer. No, I'm sorry. Emily is going to be the first one to answer this question. How do you currently use, or if elected, intend to use social media forums? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown Students page on Facebook or other tweeting or other social media forums?
Thank you. Social media. I do not have a large social media presence. Am I on the Middletown Parents of Student page? Absolutely. I think it's a resource. I like to know what's going on. So do I have social media? Yes. I do not do a lot of posting or interacting on social media. However, that doesn't mean that I will not put my presence out there and make sure that folks know how to contact me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ian. How do you currently use or intend to use social media if you are elected, for example, the Parents of Middletown page on Facebook or Twitter or other platforms?
So I actually hate social media. I am not on social media. I think the world would be a much better place without social media. It's stealing all of our data and privacy and selling it to all these other companies, and we're not seeing a dime for it. So I guess for sake of communication, I would probably have to create a page to be able to communicate with parents, but it would be specifically for that reason and that reason alone.
Thank you. Susan, how do you currently use, or if elected, intend to use social media platforms? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown student pages on Facebook or Twitter or other platforms?
Well, as far as the Middletown Parents page, I'm not on it. I applied. I haven't heard if I've been accepted to get on it yet. But however, if I had to use it, because I understand nowadays that the only way you can communicate with parents is through social media, by texting, and like you said, Twitter, because that's where they're at. I'm all for it. You know, I am on social media, and I do communicate with certain people or because of organizations. Like I said, I will use it solely for that purpose, to give updates, whatever, you know, as far as, you know, things going on. So, yes.
Thank you. Bill, how do you currently use, or if elected, intend to use social media forums? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown students page on Facebook or Twitter or other platforms?
I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I agree with Ian. I think there's a lot of information out there about the users personally that probably shouldn't be. But I do find it useful when it comes to putting information out, gathering information. It can definitely be a plus. I mean, on the parent pages, it would be a great way to put out the governance council meetings, PTO, PTA meetings, things of that nature, BOE meetings. It's a great way to spread news. So yeah, I would use it that way.
Thank you. John, how do you currently use, or if elected, intend to use social media forums? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown students page on Facebook, or use Twitter or other platforms?
Right. Good question. Prior to social media, there was public access TV, which still exists. And for about 21 years, I would do public access TV. And the show over time became more and more political because of the phone calls and the emails and so forth. So we became, the people that hosted the show, myself included, became very responsible to, you know, trying to solve problems. And at the time I was elected, well, I'm still a member of ZBA, which is Zoning Board of Appeals. Then I was elected to the Board of Assessment Appeals and the Cable Board. And you're right. And then later social media came around, but things changed a lot when I was elected to the Board of Ed. The phone doesn't stop ringing. I mean, you're getting calls mostly from teachers. Keep this confidential. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to be involved, but can you help me? Bring this up. So a guy like me will bring things up at committee meeting or bring something up at meeting after meeting, and nothing is getting done about a certain issue that could be very dangerous to people. And then you have a choice to make. Unfortunately, you have this choice to make that you'll think about for a week. And then you check with an attorney, should you write this, should you not write this? And then unfortunately people get mad, or they don't want, administration definitely gets mad, but your heart's in the right place that you want to solve the problem. But once again, you know, if I'm reelected, I'm hoping that all these issues will go away and everything will be beautiful. And we don't want problems, but unfortunately, education has become very political. And I would have to use social media to let people know what's going on. And as an elected official, I feel obligated to solve some of the problems. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Charles, how do you currently use, or if elected intend to use, social media forums? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown Students page on Facebook or Twitter or other platforms?
Well, first of all, I think that it has its uses, but for me, that kind of platform should be mostly uplifting. So I would probably it'd be more informational stuff that goes on, a meeting or something like this, or something uplifting that happened that is good, because the kids would be looking at Board of Education members to be grown-ups. And so you'd have to act like one when you're posting. And so I would like to post that way. I'm not really probably going to communicate through Twitter or things like that, although my business does a lot of it. I would probably be funneling through the email that's provided by Board of Ed members, so that whatever I say is, well, whatever you say on social media is on record anyway. But I mean, some things need to be private. So I think I would use it primarily as informational. And if someone tried to communicate me, or if it was rather benign, I would probably communicate that way. But anything that was serious would have to be funneled through the Board of Ed email, and then that way it's on record, and that's pretty simple. That's the way I would use it.
Thank you. So we're back up to David. How do you currently use, or if elected intend to use, social media forums? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown Students page on Facebook or Twitter or other platforms?
So that's a good question. And what comes to my mind is that is a private page. It's ran by, from my understanding, a community member here in Middletown. So it's really not the best choice for the school district to be using. Our district has just hired a director of communication who is using the different communications, and that's coming from the central office, and that's where the communication should be coming from. That and the kids' schools. If the schools each have their own Facebook page or something like that to pass information, that's one thing. But as a board member, I'd want to make sure that information gets out there as well, and use it more as an informational tool. The one thing I will say that I notice as a parent with the Middletown page, that the parent page, is that you have multiple parents putting posts up there from different schools. They don't necessarily tell you what school it's from, which then it becomes crazy. And then you have parents going, well, my school's not doing that, or and whatnot. And it gets very confusing. So you want to reduce that confusion. And by keeping it limited to the district's Facebook page. And then I would also have it out there so they can contact me as well through the provided Board of Ed email address.
Thank you. Deborah, how do you currently use, or if elected intend to use, social media forums? For example, how would you use the Parents of Middletown Students page on Facebook or Twitter or other platforms?
I use social media in a very limited way, and using it less and less, also because I find that the information that's provided there is not at all something that I'm has been vetted, has been reviewed, is thought for often. And it's just kind of somebody's moment of throwing some information out there. So I would not use it at all if I was a board member. I think that I would use official channels through the board and through the school system. I don't think that social media is the appropriate way to be communicating, parents forum. That's, we need to make sure that the school is communicating how they can get in touch with the Board of Ed. The parents need to know how to get in touch with the Board of Ed, but that should be through official channels and not through social media.
Thank you. All right, we will be moving on to our third question. Ian will be our first one to respond to this one. How will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
So my girlfriend's an educator, and I think, she's been through multiple schools and districts. And I think the main reason why, from what I've heard personally, one of the main reasons is like why an educator or teacher may leave is lack of support. And it seems like there's, certain levels of a hierarchy of a system, right? But it seems like you can't actually communicate with the top, even if you really wanted to. What I would like to do is have like an office hour system, where you have like a designated time where you could reach me for whatever matter, as long as it pertains to the district. And it would be completely anonymous, and it could be all very private. It could be concerns or suggestions or whatever. And I would just like to be there to be able to listen and make sure that the concerns are being heard and not kind of flushed away.
Thank you. Susan, how will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
Well, I think I would try to be in the school at least a couple times a week. I'm retired, so I can do something like that. I would like to sit down and just let them tell me what is going on. And then from there, I think I would take it to the appropriate people. I would most likely to take it to the other board members and make them aware of it. And let's decide as a group, not one person, but a group, on what we can do and how we can do to make the teachers more comfortable. I think it comes down to listening, respecting them also, because they need the respect. They're in a hard position. And I can understand why a teacher might feel like they're all out there by themselves, and that's what I would do. Keep the door open and listen.
Thank you. Bill, you are next. How will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
I think, like Ian said, I would just have a open line of communication between myself and faculty. It's important to keep that line open. I don't think that I would limit it. I mean, if something's on somebody's mind at 10 o'clock at night and they feel like they want to email me about it, shoot it on over. I might not see it until 5 a.m, but what the heck. And then, I would basically do the same thing. I would bring it to the other board members and discuss it with them and figure out how we're going to attack this problem and come up with a solution for it.
Thank you. John, how will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've dealt with that before. And one thing we did in Meriden, and actually in New Britain, we did a little bit, but in Meriden, what we did was we had 2 or 3 times where we called it a meet and greet, almost like conferences with parents, but we had conferences with admin. And, they had pizza and they had food, and everybody was, we didn't want confrontation. I mean, a little bit, but, we want to talk. And I noticed people were looser, and they were like, they were calling the superintendent was there, and he wasn't wearing a suit, and he was like, all right, what's going on, guys? Oh, we need a hall monitor. All right, let's see what we can do for you guys. So now you feel they're listening. And there was an issue actually that came up, and I was involved with, where we had an intruder in the school, and we felt the school didn't deal with it properly. But rather than, go to the grievance and all that business, and we talked to Mark about it, and we brought the security guards in, and we were like, look, this can't happen again. And that seemed to work. And unfortunately, we don't do that anymore, but that worked really well. We used the media center, I don't know why we don't do it. It was really good. And I suggested it a couple times in Middletown. And unfortunately, maybe that's a building administrator's decision, but I have suggested it. So I thought it worked. So thank you.
Okay. Charles, how will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
Well, I think the Board of Ed's job is to represent the taxpayers, the parents. The administration or the superintendent is really the employee of, or is hired by the Board of Ed. And so that's as far as we can, in a sense, deal with that directly. But as far as the our job is to represent everyone in a sense other than the administration, although we want to support the administration. So if an administration gets hired, even if you disagree with them, let's say you're a minority party and you don't really like who got hired, but you still want to advocate for their success. So the teacher should have kind of a main line into the Board of Education, whether it's through the union or individually. But I think Ian's idea is a pretty good one about office hour. I mean, and so is Bill's, where he'll just take anything in the middle of the night, because I know that Bill will do that. So I think I would want to act in my role as a member of the Board of Education to hear what teachers have to say. And I would advocate that teachers are more active somehow, or more heard. I'm sure teachers want to be more active that way, but I would want to be and we would be talking to each other. So the Board of Ed members. Anyway, that's what I think. My job is to help advocate for teachers and taxpayers and parents and spread that word to the administration.
Thank you. David, how will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
That's a great question, and that seems to be a hot topic right now. So the way I would do this, well, my suggestion would be very similar to what Charles and everyone else has made too. All great suggestions, but making yourself available, because you are, if you're elected as the board member, in my opinion, you're not working for the superintendent per se. You're working for the parents, the teachers, and the students. And yes, you might have hired the superintendent, but you want to make sure there's checks and balances. So being that middleman or middlewoman, you're working with both parties and trying to come to a mutual agreement. And as Charles mentioned, you may not agree with the outcome, but we have to support that outcome. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is just having that open communication with the teachers, going into the schools, speaking with the teachers, meeting with them, and letting them know that you actually care, because that's what we need as board members. We need to be showing the faculty, and not just teachers, because we have the secretaries. If they have an issue, they're important too. The janitors are important, the nurses are important. So I know we're really pushing on teachers, but when it comes down to it, the teachers are not the only backbone for our students. Everyone in the school is a backbone, and they all have a voice. And as board of ed members, we have to be that voice with them to the superintendent as well.
Thank you. Deborah, how will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
Well, I think there has to be part of our role is to make sure that the school is functioning properly. And at the end of the day, part of that is going to be asking that the administration shows us how they're getting teacher feedback. There should be systematic, clear ways in which teachers, whether it's through the union, but even not only through the union, whether or not there are employee engagement surveys that are regularly being provided, where people are able to give anonymous feedback that would filter up through to the Board of Ed. The administration, we would have to look at where those, we do employee satisfaction surveys, we ask for input, and then we say, depending on what that input is, how do we do, task the administration to address that with actionable plans. So there has to be a method of getting systematic feedback. I think it's, we could go in and randomly run into some teachers. You get a kind of a feel for the pulse of things, but I think it has to be more than that. Is what I think. And getting that feedback is critical, and it has to be, broadly and broadly filtered out.
Thank you. Emily, how will you address central office administration when teachers and staff say they don't feel supported?
I'm going to say that this situation depends. So first of all, I'm going to go in and do my best to build relationships and get to know folks and make sure that I'm asking how they're doing, asking if there's things that they need. But if there's a specific situation that someone doesn't feel supported and we kind of get down to the nitty gritty, I mean, more than likely, I'm going to encourage them to have a conversation with their administrator, right? Or their peers or whoever else is within the school. But I'm going to follow up. So I'm going to take that next step and just say, how are things going? Did this happen? Now, if we're talking about something that is bigger than that, and it's become a pattern and a very clear pattern, now we know we have an issue, and I want to see data. I want to know how wide this is. And I want to be able to, as a board member, support, right? And then it does go back to like, how do we as a board of education address this with the district? What information are we going to ask for, and what needs to change? And I will say that I'm not interested in just surface level answers. Like, I actually want data. I actually want more information. I want to be able to get to the bottom of this, and let's have a full, transparent conversation and dialogue. This really comes down to dialogue. So like I said, there's two separate things going there. Like, I do believe in following the proper channels. If there's an issue that folks are going to their supervisor, they're going to their union, they're doing what needs to happen there. But obviously, if it's a bigger issue than that, then we've got to do more. So, but again, it really first starts with making sure that I'm available and building relationships and being consistent.
Thank you. All right, so and that brings, so now we are going to move on to our next question. And Susan, are we at Susan? You're gonna be the first one this time? I put a check when I shouldn't have. Susan's our first one. Thank you, John, for helping me keep track. Susan's is going to answer this question first. 466 members would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, their secretaries, custodians, cafeteria workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
Okay. From my understanding of the 466 is that they would like to take the teachers and certain people or certain jobs and put them under the Board of Education and let them do the hiring. Personally, I don't see a problem of it. And I think that if these people are going to come under the Board of Ed, they should belong to the union, or it's up to the union if they want to bring these people in, underneath it. But I think that you shouldn't have to split a union. Why not combine it? Bring that administration over there under the Board of Ed, let them do the hiring, and let the union handle, or, them come under that umbrella. So that's how I see it. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Right. Bill, 466 members would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, secretaries, custodians, and CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
I'm actually against it on both questions, actually. I think it's reinventing the wheel. I think as far as splitting the union goes, that's a bad decision, because once you do that, then the teachers that remain in the union are going to have to renegotiate, and it just creates further problems and further headaches. I say leave it the way it is, and let's not fix that's something that's not broken.
Thank you. John, 466 would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, secretaries, custodians, and CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
No on charter review question. I don't think a union should be split at all. As a union member, I pay dues and I'm a membership former union rep. I think it's not a good thing. And I think all superintendents, not just our guy in Middletown, all superintendents, they use state statute 10-220 to hide behind when they, when you question the money or question something like that. And what's happened over the years is all of our superintendents in Connecticut they've looked less at the superintendent duties, and they've become kind of like empire builders. I can create a job for this and I can create a job for that, and all these jobs are created, but nobody knows what these people are doing. And I think if you do that, you split the union, the empire will get much bigger for them. It's not a good thing, and the answer is no to charter revision. Thank you.
Charles, 466 would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, secretaries, custodians, CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
I'm opposed to that charter revision. I feel in some ways that it's a way to, in a sense, kind of bust a union, and I don't think that that should happen. And I don't understand, honestly, why the administration would not want to be a backstop for that group, for that union, which is the case now. So there would be no backstop. It would just be under, as John said, it would be under the BOE, and it creates a different animal. So my position, I don't know if it's different than anyone else's, but I have a lot of people in my family who were union people, including presidents of unions. And I kind of talked about this, and I really do see it as kind of a union busting thing. So no.
Thank you. David, 466 would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, secretaries, custodians, CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
I'm also opposed to it. I feel that the way they're trying to handle it, it was going to be very harmful to the staff and how it will affect the staff. And as Charles mentioned too, it's surprising that the administration is kind of entertaining this idea of allowing to break up the union in this matter.
And Deborah, 466 members would like to know your positions on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, secretaries, custodians, CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
So basically, my understanding of the charter revision is that this was put together by a bipartisan group of the city council, that the thought process behind it was that it would allow for more efficient hiring and streamlining of the running of the school system. So I think those are very important goals. I think that if this results in that union not getting broken up and not receiving representation, that is problematic. But I believe if they can still maintain representation through their union, the voice is still being heard, and yet there's a benefit to the school system running more efficiently and more cost effectively. I think that we have to balance both of those decisions. And so, I think that currently that if the union feels very strongly against it, that they can't be represented, I respect their position and would support that.
Thank you. Emily, 466 members would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, secretaries, custodians, CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
So I'm going to kind of follow up, with Deborah. I don't want to see anything split up, like, honestly. And, of course, I would need a lot more information about how this would all even go down. But ultimately, not trying to split up anything. And but I do agree on some level that the Board of Ed and that the district does need some ability with hiring and evaluation of their staff. I'm not sure this is the route, but I don't have anything else to say about it.
Thank you. And Ian, 466 members would like to know your position on the charter revision for question 2. Do you support splitting the 466 union members that are BOE staff, their secretaries, custodians, CAF workers, thereby creating a new union under the BOE? Or do you feel these staff members should remain under the 466 city umbrella?
So yeah, kind of that outline what everyone else was saying. I don't want to see any unions get split up. I also will generally vote in support of what the union wants. As of right now, I don't have enough information. I've been trying to read about it and trying to read both sides in support and against. So right now, I don't know, but I think I'm leaning towards no.
Thank you. And I believe everyone had an opportunity to answer that question. So we are going to go to our next question. Bill will be our first person to answer this question. This is from our paraeducators. Please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them, and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? If so, what are they?
I think they're essential. I'm actually glad you asked me this one. I actually said in a post, I don't know, it was a couple weeks back. And actually, no, it was more than a post. It was actually at a BOE meeting where I said that we could use a few less directors and a few more paras. I think that paras take a lot of weight off of the teachers with lesson planning and just helping the kids learn. I think that they really do, and take this how you will, but I think they do God's work. They help you guys and they're helping the students all at the same time. I support them 100%. I'd really like to see the district hire some more paras. I know we're pretty low right now on them and duty aides. So yeah, maybe that's something that we can look into if I get elected.
Okay, thank you. John, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them, and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? And if so, what are they?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier in my opening statement, I was a paraprofessional in 1995. And it's tough. You don't make a lot of money. I mean, if I don't know if anyone on this dais or has been a para, but you do, like Bill said, God's work in a way, and you're doing it because you care about the kids. And most of the phone calls I get actually are from teachers and from paraprofessionals. And I think one of the questions was, what would be a good pay rate to pay the para? I think I read it on our sheet, and I came up with $20.54. People said, "What do you come up with that for?" I said, because the standard contract for my teaching salary is, I think, $41. So I just kind of chopped it in half. I don't know why I decided to do that, but that's a lot more money than they're making now. But I do think, and I talked to a lot of parents, I think they really need to work with their own union to push their contract to further get more benefits than what they can get. As a Board of Education member, you don't really work, you do work with unions, but you don't work with them to get what they want, where the union would have to sit at the table with their union, not the teacher union, with whoever the admin is currently for Middletown. But that's up to them, but you can encourage them. you can talk to them about things like that. But like Bill says, we definitely need more paras. I mean, I don't think you would have a school without them if you really think about it, because they do one-on-one work, and they have kids in the library, and they sit in the class and they translate, and they do things like that. Things that it's kind of like the box score in baseball. You look at the box score and you go, there's a kid doing a lot of stuff, or a player, but you don't know it because they don't keep track of it. And unfortunately, these people don't get tracked in a nice way. And maybe as a building, we need to appreciate them more as well. And thank you.
Charles, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them, and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? And if so, what are they?
Well, I certainly support paralegals as paralegals. Oh my goodness, paraprofessionals as foundational. That's from my old experience in working in trade schools. Yeah, I think the paraprofessionals are useful to teachers. They're definitely underpaid. I think whenever, as a Board of Ed member, you can encourage the superintendent or the administration to adjust things, adjust budgets and so forth in favor of bringing on more paraprofessionals and others as well, whether they're teacher assistants or whatever they might be, even SROs. I think that I think that the administration budget is top heavy, and there's plenty of room for spreading the wealth around by hiring paraprofessionals as frontline helpers to teachers and influences on students.
Thank you. David, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them, and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? And if so, what are they?
So yes, I do support paras. They are very important to the education system. While they're in the schools, they help teach, they help assist the teachers, and honestly, kind of going back to a previous question about shadowing teachers, I would actually jump on up to shadow paras too, because their interaction with one-on-one students is going to be different than the teacher. And that way, it would allow me to help understand where they're coming from, to help give them the support they're looking for. I'm also for trying to increase their pay, because more recently, when you look at paras pay here in Middletown versus the surrounding areas, Middletown is down. And in order to attract not just paras, but teachers and other staff members that we need, we have to kind of increase our budget in the areas that we need, and not so much at central office.
Thank you. Deborah, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them, and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? And if so, what are they?
I just could remember when my kids were in school and I came to visit, the parents were there. They were on the ground working very, very closely with the teachers. I would think, in terms of supporting paras, I think this is a broader question on how I would evaluate the overall resources and how we're using resources. My philosophy of using resources as a Board of Ed member would be, first and foremost, we have to get those resources closest to our consumer, which is the students. So I'm going to look very carefully at the budget to understand where these line items are. And a line item is going to be, of course, the people that are on the ground dealing with the students every day. So I'm going to definitely, look to see and make sure, and this is in the bigger picture of, the issues of retention and turnover and keeping the best people on the ground for our students and making sure that our budget and we as a board support getting those resources where they're needed. So paras would be absolutely part of that, that equation.
Thank you. Emily, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district and as you see them, and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see the opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? And if so, what are they?
Paraeducators are invaluable. And I'm pretty sure that anyone who works in a school would agree. I'm sure parents agree. If you talk to your kids, who do they know? They know the paraeducators that are in their school, in their classrooms. They have very strong relationships with them. They are so important to a school. So I would say that I would make myself available to paraeducators and any support staff, the same as teachers. Like, anyone in the school, like, I want to be there for you. I want to listen. I want to know what you need. I do believe that they are undervalued, especially when it comes to wages. And so I would definitely like to see something change there. But overall, again, I think always, keeping paraeducators in mind when making decisions and looking at initiatives. I think that they're part of the equation. So we definitely cannot, not think about them. So I think that that's really, really important. And I can say I will definitely keep them as part of my focus.
Thank you. Ian, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, so I'm probably a little biased because my girlfriend is actually a paraeducator in New Britain. And the work she does is definitely, like Emily said, invaluable. And I also think that paras are vital to the success of students who have learning disabilities. It kind of creates a more equitable learning center for all students, and it really, really helps out a lot. I would like to see more paras hired. I'd like to see their wages increase. I actually think it's kind of funny. Jonathan said like 20.53 was his number. Last night, I was trying to find the number I thought would be fair for a tier 1 contract. And I figured, like most economists agree, $15 an hour is a livable wage. And for someone with a bachelor's, the average monthly payment is like $400 a month on your student loans. So if you want to kind of make up that difference, it ended up being like 20.x an hour. So that would probably be the price I'd like to see started off on for tier 1. I'd like to see more hired for sure. I'm in full support with paraeducators.
Thank you. Susan, please share your thoughts on the value of paraeducators in our district as you see them and how you would have that guide your decision-making and actions as a board member. Related to that, do you see opportunities in your role to better support paraeducators in the district? If so, what are they?
I think that paraprofessionals are very important. I'm glad that they are in the schools, and we do need more because they help those who might need that little one-on-one in understanding those who have disability. They can help them, and that kind of frees up the the teacher a little bit. I also see that they do need a pay raise because they are there working very hard. They're just like a teacher. They are, they're the teacher's right hand, so they do need a raise. I did a little research today. I found that they only make $16 an hour in Middletown. But yet and still, if you look at through the country, there's a lot of states that are paying a whole lot more. And I think that we need to go ahead and give these people a raise and make sure that they do get raises, periodically, cost of living raise, those kind of things, and also throw in insurance. If they don't have it, they should have insurance in there too, and not coming out of their pay. You know what I'm saying? They got to pay for their insurance. I don't think that is right because of what they do. Now, that's my opinion. They're definitely very important.
Thank you. So that brings us to the close for that question. We are now at John Polino, as he's going to get to answer this question first. How will you hold the central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system? Oh, no, we can't. I'm sorry, John, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me? Sorry to be a pain, but could you repeat that? I couldn't hear a word.
No problem. How will you hold the central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
Yeah, well, people talk about newsletters, social media pages, transparency, but I think sometimes with transparency, you have to be careful with HIPAA laws, FERPA laws. I mean, obviously, and other things like that. So you have to be very careful. You can't just say teacher A did this in class. That stuff you can't do. But I think you're referring to more, I think, events and situations that the public should be involved in. I think that's important. And I think recently there was something about recess where people were pushing for recess. And I think I thought as a member, that was a good cause. I think, young children, and I need recess. So I thought that was a good cause to hitch my wagon on. When people say, well, it could cost you votes. Hey, whatever. I didn't think like that at all. I mean, it is what it is. As a member, and I tell all the members, you need to stand up for what you believe in. And I really wouldn't worry about the political landscape. I think if you do that, then it becomes weird. But to be transparent, if people call you, you speak to them. If you want to post something, make sure you're posting something that you think is decent. But at the same time, you will ruffle some feathers. My other boards, not as much. I mean, zoning board, Board of Assessment Appeals, cable board, nobody's too angry with you. But Board of Ed, no matter, somebody told me this before I took the job. The person was on the board for 8 years. He said, Jonathan, no matter what you do, people will be mad at you. So all you guys, I'll tell you that. So being transparent is good, but just remember there are consequences with transparency. So thank you.
Charles, how will you hold the central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
I'm actually having a little trouble with the understanding or what the intent of the question is. Transparency, there should be systems in place where so for example, let's say you have teachers, the big issue now is teachers leaving or administrators leaving, and a lack of exit interviews, or those interviews are not taking place anymore, or they're not being made. The whole reason for it is to find trends, as to find out why a thing is the way it is. So for almost anything, you can create a system of transparency without giving up a person's identity. And it's good for the school system to have the opportunity to understand why a thing is happening, whatever it might be. The good example would be the number of teachers or administrators that leave, and having the exit interviews, albeit confidential. You'll find a trend, and then you'll be able to act on the trend without exposing anybody. So I think almost anything that you have, any issue that has to do with the administration, the superintendent or any of those people, it could be any issue. If you're polling, then it gives you an opportunity to have a fact-based thing to bring up at a Board of Ed meeting, to collaborate with, because I don't believe administrators, go out of their way to harm people or anything like that, but they sometimes need some guidance. And I see that as our role is to help them, encourage them to be as transparent as they possibly can, so that we can address trends that need to be corrected.
Thank you. David, how will you hold central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
Well, first, I'd like to just say, what is the purpose of the Board of Ed if we're not holding the superintendent accountable? For small things, another hot topic among the elementary schools is recess. Parents want recess, but we're not getting feedback on why the recess is the way it is. We hear different bits and pieces. You talk to different schools in the community around here in Connecticut, which I've contacted other schools to look into see how they're running their recess programs. And other schools have came up with valuable ways of running their recess program. So it's kind of shocking that we haven't been able to do that here in Middletown. And I think that could be one small thing to be, hold the superintendent to. But at other things too is, we have other things going on in our district, and if there are concerns to the constituents, to the community members, to the teachers, we need to be able to push back on the superintendent on that, and they need to make decisions on things. I think that's how I'm going to end up leaving that question.
Thank you. Deborah, how will you hold central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
Well, I think there's, as far as I know, there are certainly the Board of Ed meetings are open for public comment. And I know that the recess discussion came up at the board and people were provided input, and the superintendent at the time also communicated the position on it. So I do think that that was communicated within a forum that is appropriate. The question more of, how do we hold them accountable for transparent information is we would be responsible. Again, we're an oversight institution. We can't do the work of the superintendent or of the administration or of the teachers. We're here, to provide guidance and support. So one of the things we would be reviewing is, in fact, the communications plans of the school system, and to pressure test them, make sure that those communication methodologies are appropriate. Whether, for example, we create one Board of Ed Facebook page for getting information out because that's a good way to get information out. Whether there's, a method of systematically sending out notices from the Board of Ed. But I think our role is to understand what that communication plan is. Does it make sense? And is it being, if it's not working, or they're not holding to that, then we would hold them accountable for not meeting the communications plans that they have articulated to us and said that they were going to do. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Emily, how will you hold central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
I'm going to ask lots of questions for one. So ask questions, provide guidance, be critical of the things that are coming out, and make sure that you're providing that feedback. Like, I think it is so important. As Deborah said, the Board of Ed is here to be that oversight, right? Like, we're not here to be the administrators. We're not here to be, the superintendent. We are here to provide that oversight. And if something comes out that doesn't make sense, or they're planning to put something out that doesn't make sense, or is not understandable, or is masking in some way, then I'm going to push back. Like, I have no problem saying, yeah, I don't think that's the way to go about it. Recess was brought up. I'm going to be critical for a moment. There's this whole thing that blows up. Everybody's, signing a document. They all want recess back. The next day we get this email that says recess is on. And then all of this, stuff that was not a very good way to handle that situation. And I have been very open and honest about that. That is an opportunity to have dialogue, like dialogue with your students, dialogue with your parents, dialogue with teachers, paraprofessionals, everyone. And so I know that happened kind of later on, still not resolved to my knowledge. But I think, again, that we just need to make sure that things that are coming out are making sense. And as board members that we're pushing back when appropriate.
Thank you. Ian, how will you hold central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
Yes, I think the most important would be to make sure we're on the same page, the Board of Ed and the CEO, to make sure that the status update that they may be pushing is what we're also in support of. Second, this would be another time where I would be okay with a Facebook page or something like that, where you can post weekly updates of anything that may have changed, or any deadlines that might have been missed or beaten. I think also there's great software out there where you can, spin up a website and you can have parents put in suggestions, and then, they can vote on what they think is the most critical thing facing their students or their children at this time. And then you just take in that collection of data and respond to it with full honesty and full transparency. And maybe, the Board of Ed also should be able to look over those responses and make sure that we're in total agreement with it. But I think it's a matter of synchronicity and making sure that there's no, there's no loose screws. Everyone's on the same page going forward.
Thank you. Susan, how will you hold central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
Well, excuse me. I think that I would keep monitoring what is being put out there. I know I've heard people say about Facebook and things like that and websites. And I was thinking about two of my kids go to ACES at Chase. They used to go to ACES in Meriden. And practically every day or every other day, I get an update on what is going on from the principal of the school. All updates, anything, very small things, good things, bad things. And I think that's what we need, and I think that it might need to be monitored to make sure that like they say, what's going out there is the right thing, So that's how I feel about it. We need to just sit back and watch. And, if you don't have no transparency, you're definitely not going to have any trust from anybody. Nobody's not going to trust you. Your staff and the parents, they're not going to trust you. So we need to keep that in mind too, So that's it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, how will you hold central office accountable for providing the community with accurate, transparent updates on the status and direction of the school system?
Well, I like everybody else said, I think that everybody being on the same page and being in sync with each other is important. You have to work together in order to make things happen. And if the Board of Ed is not going to work together with the superintendent or whatever, then we're going to have problems. So we need to keep that line of communication open. We need to be critical of each other. We need to push each other to make good decisions for the district, and hold each other accountable, when it's proper. I got to say that my McDonough student, his principal, Damien, is amazing. The communication and transparency that I get from him is by far way better than anything I've seen. I could call Damien right now and he'd answer the phone. So I really think that transparency is important. Obviously, when it comes to the public and like John said with the FERPA and the HIPAA stuff, I mean, obviously we would have to be careful, but I mean, we would have all that stuff ironed out before we made a public announcement. So I just think that everybody's got to stick together and work together and critique each other when needed. But, we got to do it together.
Thank you. And so at this point, that's going to be our last question for the evening. I'm going to give candidates everyone will get 2 minutes to a final statement and a closing statement. And I would like to thank the public we had over 28 questions. We have almost 30 questions, and I think a few more have shown up. These questions were shared with the candidates so they know what the constituents are asking, what they want to know. So the candidates will be able to answer these questions on their own or in another fashion in any other way. But thank you to the community for all of our questions tonight. So with that, I would like to we'll be starting with Charles. It works out that everybody gets to go first once. So and that's just how our time frame worked out. So I'm glad that worked out for us. So Charles, you get to go first. If you give us 2 minutes closing statement, please.
Well, I hope it's less than 2 minutes. But in terms of the closing statement, I feel that I come from a place that might be useful to the Board of Education, in the sense that I tend to be more oriented toward, you have an educational product that we're delivering, and the people that deliver the product are teachers and local administrators. And in some sense, things are measured oftentimes by how many people are being funneled into college. Not everybody gets funneled into college and doesn't want to go to college. So I think when you graduate from high school, you should be able to do something. And you can't just pass it off to something like Vinyl Tech and say, well, they're going to handle people who want trades. We could put more money in those areas. I also believe in transparency. I believe, and I've said it before, Fred Rogers said, if it's mentionable, then it's manageable. And so if things aren't transparent, then you can't manage anything. There should be safety in the schools for the students. They should feel comfortable that it's a nurturing place, that teachers need to feel really comfortable and feel like they can teach. Teachers should be able to teach, students should be able to learn, and there shouldn't be a lot of friction. Parents are the front line with, teachers are the front line with parents, and so I think there needs to be more power centered there than in the administration in general, whoever's there. That's it.
Thank you. All right, David, you get to go next.
So thank you for this evening and the time to be able to speak and get some points across and answered. So one thing is I have solutions, and it's hard to try to get solutions out, in these quick forums like this. And I know that's a big thing. It's like you want to talk about an issue, but you need to provide a solution. So a lot of these issues, I have solutions I've thought about. I'm bouncing them off of people's ideas. But also at the same time, as a board member, I want to be able to work together with community members, teachers, and administration over at central office to make sure we run it smoothly as an oil machine. And another thing is too, that it's another big hot topic, I think, among the teachers themselves, is the burnout. And when you're burned out because we have a district that's having all these different initiatives, and we're not even able to get through one initiative before another initiative is started, that wreaks havoc, not just on the teachers, but on our children. And our children are being put through stress that they do not need. And I would like to try to streamline that in any way we can, and by speaking with the teachers and getting their ideas and bringing them forth to the superintendent. And I would just like to just kind of end in that if I'm elected, I look forward to working together, political party aside, as a community, working with teachers, board members, parents and staff, and create an amazing learning environment and workplace. And that's it. Thank you. And vote for David.
Thank you. And Deborah, you get to go next.
All right. So I'm not a professional educator, but as an attorney with private sector experience, I believe I come with a certain skill set, including experience working with boards, familiarity with complex financial and information, and an ability to ask hard questions. That should be helpful in meeting my obligations as a board member. But even more so, I feel very passionately about education. I was an active parent in the Middletown schools and I'm very familiar with a lot of the teachers that are there, some of which are now retired. But I think this is a great, I think we need to focus on the positives and building from those positives. I recognize, I had two daughters 2 years apart, and every 2 years back then, there was something new that they were trying. And that was very frustrating on the teachers. So I think that's been a concern of mine all along. And, the idea that there are 6 different initiatives being thrown at teachers, I think that's really got to be a challenge. But again, let's work together as a board and make sure that we're holding the administration accountable for what they're doing. Whatever initiatives that are being done are being tracked, that they're effective, and that they're doing what they should do. And then also, I think we need to make sure that our taxpayer money is being used for the appropriate uses and going to the places that are going to most impact our kids. And finally, I think we also have great resources in the community between Wesleyan, between Pratt and Whitney. If we can, think of creative ways to use those resources in the school, I think that's great. They already have done it, and so I think we should build on the positives.
Thank you. Emily, you get to go next.
So just to follow up, my passion has always been focused on community and an emphasis on supporting all children. So I definitely have a very internal passion and focus that really has to do with making sure that children have an equitable and quality education and have opportunities. That does mean that there's a lot of collaboration that has to take place. That does mean that we need to work together, Board of Education, superintendent, the community, everyone, our entire community. Teachers and support staff have a voice and they should be at the table when decisions are made. A teacher once said to me, I just wish for one groundhog year, just 1 year where we don't have a new initiative and all these things are not changing. And I felt that. Like, think about, coming year after year and there's a new initiative, there's something else, but they're not taking anything away. It's just more. So we always need to keep sight of what is being asked. And so I definitely have a soft spot for teachers and all support staff. And I agree with Deborah. I think our resources need to be there. And we need to be supporting all of our educators, excuse me. So obviously my vision really is just that our community works together, that we have open dialogue and collaboration, and that when there are tough topics, when there are things going on, we don't shy away from it, right? We have that dialogue. We get through it together. We have a partnership and we build upon what we have, because this is a wonderful community. I love it here. My family loves it here, and I am invested in helping this community grow.
Thank you. Ian, you get to go next.
Hello. So I got to admit, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to talk about technology, as that's kind of like the forefront of one of the reasons why I want to run. And mainly because, we're seeing a shift in the paradigm where a lot of talented programmers are learning this at young ages, where they're learning to write code at 13, 14, and they're actually writing projects. They have public websites, public repositories, and they're getting jobs at Google, Apple, Facebook, all these amazing companies, and they don't even have a college degree. And that's not me saying you shouldn't go to college, but it's saying that it's with the right education and the right kind of framework for learning how to learn these STEM careers, you can have a really bright future ahead of you. And it's also a great hobby and a lot of fun. But, you know, I'm also not an educator, but I do want to use my experience in the technology field to be able to kind of shape the curriculum so that we can prepare students to potentially get a great job with their passion and their hobby right out of high school. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Susan, please go next.
Well, it was real. I'm gonna tell you that I never thought it was going to be like this here, but I had a great time. I listened to everybody's opinion and their ideas. And the bottom line is that we all have to work together for our kids, for their future. We also need the parents to come on in there and help us do this, because teachers can't do this all by themselves. You can have all the paraprofessionals there, you can have everybody, but we also have to have the parents in there helping. My goal is that I wanted to go back and bring back those fundamental skills of education. I see kids that can't even sign their name. There's kids out there that work, but they can't make change if that cash register goes down. Technology is good, but we don't want our kids to be signing their paychecks with an X or just typing their name in through a font and letting that font sign their name. You know, we don't want that. We definitely want, you know, for the mental health of our kids and our teachers and the safety, we need to look at that also. You know, we need to also look at those who are disadvantaged and bring them up to their peers. We need to do those things. There's a lot of things we need to do, and we can all do them. We can, as we work together. So that is my last few words. We all need to work together because we all got the same goal, that our kids come out of high school, they come out of elementary, that they're reading, writing, no technology, and they don't have all these issues that's going on. Keep kids and let them be kids. Don't put them in the grown folks' doggone mess. That's my thing. All right.
Thank you. Bill, you're next, please.
Okay, so I guess, you know, with me, it's service to the teachers and the students. You know, I've done a lot of community work with kids, and I continue to do a lot of community work with kids, and they've basically been my main focus. And I think I speak for everybody on here tonight that, you know, I think everyone's main focus is to make sure that our kids are getting the best education that we can possibly provide for them with the tools that we have. I was thinking, you know, as Susan was talking about being able to, for the kids to be able to sign their names and stuff. I just had that issue with my daughter. It's so funny she said that, because my daughter just signed up for cheerleading, and I'm like, here, sign this. And she goes, you mean in cursive? And I'm like, yeah, not happening. So we had to show her how to do it. So that was kind of funny that she brought that up, because it just made me think like, wow, I just went through that the other night. And the thought had never even crossed my mind, because we've come so far in education. Like, you know, when I was in school, we didn't have laptops. You know, we did everything pen and paper. So, I mean, maybe when I was graduating, you know, there was a computer in the library, but that was about it. But, you know, if I get elected, I look forward to working with whoever else is on the board with me, and you know, regardless of you know, political backgrounds or whatever. I mean, to me, this is not a political thing. This is for the kids. And if we're not going to work together, then we're just going to spin our wheels and we're going to have a bit of a mess. So we need to just keep that in mind and work together for the same common goal, which is what's best for the kids.
Thank you. And John?
Thank you. I think it was David who mentioned looking for solutions to problems. 2 years ago, before the pandemic, I did a shadow at a school. You know, I shadowed at a school, and we were actually looking at fighting and what we can do about it. And the school in Hamden, they did everything the old way. They encouraged teachers to give detentions. And then I said, well, what happens next? And the headmaster, I believe, or the dean of students, sorry, the dean of students said, well, and if the kid doesn't come for detention, give me the name. And then they would give an in-house detention after school, half an hour. And then the next day would be in-school suspension. And I kept saying, well, aren't you worried about the numbers? Are you worried about the numbers? And they said, no, we're not worried about the numbers because we expect the numbers to go up September, October. I mean, they were worried, but they had a theory that September, October, November, and they always used to say before Christmas, they would be very, very, very strict. And then after that, kids would know that, you know, Mr. Polino or Miss Carter is not playing around. You get attention if you don't show up. And it seemed really neat how they were doing it. Everybody was participating. They had a message statement about discipline. You know, they weren't looking to give detentions, but if a kid was doing something, they had a system. You get caught fighting, you'll be dealt with. And if it's really bad, you might get arrested. And it was, you know, not that you want anybody arrested, but after a while, kids know that that's the expectation of the school, and that's what we're doing. And this was in Hamden. And the second thing I want to talk about is sacrifice. Every single person up here tonight, candidates, you know, people running for re-election, people on every board, sacrifices something. You know, they sacrifice time away from their family. They sacrifice, teachers, you know, do that too, but we're getting paid for that. But the members, BOE members, do not get paid. Planning and zoning, they do not.
We've lost you, Mr. Polino. Mr. Polino, we can't hear you.
Because they really,
There we go.
you know, my grandparents weren't educated. When my dad became a teacher, they thought he was the president. And my dad doesn't look like a president, but they thought he was the president. I mean, they were so happy that my dad, who was born in Italy, Sicily actually, came over and became a high school teacher, you know, and that was a big thing. And I think we need to talk to our kids, especially at the schools, about sacrifice. And I think it's a great thing. And I wish you all luck and have a great night. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So this brings us to a conclusion to our candidate forum. To the public, please know and understand that this is just a quick snapshot of each and every one of our candidates. I hope that when our candidates come door knocking, that you open the door and you have conversation with them. I encourage you when our candidates call that you have a conversation with them. It is important to get to know our candidates, give them an opportunity to get to, for you to learn more about them. And please get out and vote. And please, you know, we appreciate everything that you've done. Spread this message around, let people know and know about our candidates. So I really appreciate everybody's work tonight. I'd like to give a special thanks to Alicia Carter for doing all the legwork to get this up and running this evening. So I definitely appreciate that very much. And I thank you, each and every one of our Board of Education candidates, for coming on and doing this with us. And with that, I would like to say good night.